Hey everyone, good to be here with you today. I've been thinking a lot about something that affects literally everyone on the planet, money. Managing it, growing it, sometimes losing it. I've had a interesting financial journey, been broke, been rich, been broke again, then made it back. And through all of that, the PayPal days, nearly bankrupting Tesla and SpaceX simultaneously in 2008 to where we are now, I've learned some painful lessons. So today, I want to talk about the 7 big financial mistakes I see people making. These aren't just theoretical problems. I've made most of these mistakes myself, learned from them the hard way, and I still see smart, capable people falling into these same traps every day. Look, financial education isn't something most of us get in school, right? We learn calculus, but not how compound interest works. We memorize historical dates, but don't learn how to balance risk in our investment portfolios. It's backwards. Here's the thing. Your relationship with money impacts everything else in your life. Your stress levels, your relationships, the opportunities you can pursue, your ability to make an impact on the world around you. So let's discuss these mistakes and, more importantly, how to fix them. I think you'll find at least 2 or 3 that hit uncomfortably close to home. That's good. That means there's room for improvement. Actually, before we start, quick question for you. If you had to rate your financial literacy on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put yourself? Just think about that number for a second. Whatever number you came up with, I promise you that understanding these 7 mistakes will bump that number up a couple of points. Let's get started. Mistake number 1. Living without financial runway. The first costly mistake is living without what I call financial runway. This is probably the most fundamental financial principle I believe in. What's runway? It's how long you could survive if your income suddenly stopped. Most Americans, something like 60% last time I checked, can't handle a $1,000 emergency expense without going into debt. That's terrifying. I learned about runway the hard way. When I was building my first company, Zip2, my brother Kimball and I had almost no money. We were sleeping in the office, showering at the YMCA, and splitting a $30 pizza across an entire week to save cash. We had maybe 2 months of runway at any given time. That constant financial pressure affects every decision you make. It forces short-term thinking. It makes you compromise on the wrong things. It's mentally exhausting. Later, when I was running SpaceX and Tesla simultaneously in 2008, we nearly ran out of money completely. I had to make a choice, split my remaining capital between the 2 companies and watch them both slowly die or go all in on one. That was during the financial crisis, when raising additional funds was nearly impossible. I went all in on both companies instead, putting in my last dollars and borrowing money for rent. I literally had 0 runway. The stress was, well, I wouldn't recommend it. On Christmas Eve 2008, SpaceX finally got a NASA contract, and Tesla closed a financing round on the last possible day before bankruptcy. We made it by the skin of our teeth. Here's the solution. You need 6 months of living expenses saved at an absolute minimum, ideally a year. This isn't just to protect against job loss. It's to give you the freedom to make better long-term decisions. With runway, you can leave a toxic job, take a bigger career risk, negotiate harder for salary because you're not desperate, or just sleep better at night. How do you build runway if you don't have it? Start small. Even saving $50 a week adds up to $2,600 a year. Make it automatic so you don't have to think about it. Cut unnecessary subscriptions. Most people have $100, negative $200 a month in subscriptions they barely use. And consider a side hustle, even temporarily, to build that buffer faster. The peace of mind that comes with having runway is worth every sacrifice it takes to build it. I can't emphasize enough how different life feels when you're not one paycheck away from disaster. Let me ask you this. What would change about your day-to-day decisions if you had a full year of expenses saved up? Would you approach your career differently, your relationships, your willingness to take risks? Think about that. Mistake number 2, consumer debt addiction. The second major financial mistake is what I call consumer debt addiction. This one's painful for many people to hear, but we have to talk about it. Credit cards, car loans, buy now, pay later services, and other high-interest consumer debt are absolute wealth killers. The average American household carries about $7,000 in credit card debt with interest rates often above 20%. That's financial suicide. I've always been very debt averse in my personal finances, even when Tesla and SpaceX were struggling and I was personally guaranteeing company debt. I tried to avoid personal consumer debt. Here's a story that stuck with me. In the early days of Tesla, one of our brilliant engineers came to me really stressed out. He was making a good salary, solid six figures, but was completely broke. Why? He had a luxury car with a massive payment, an expensive apartment, and credit card debt from living beyond his means. Despite being incredibly talented, he was trapped in a job he had grown to hate because he couldn't afford even a single missed paycheck. Consumer debt creates the illusion of wealth while actually making you poorer. That new car smell lasts a few weeks. The payment lasts 5 to 7 years while the car depreciates. The solution isn't complicated, but it's not easy either. First, stop adding to the problem. Use debit cards or pay cash. If you absolutely need a credit card for certain transactions, pay it off in full every month. Second, attack your existing debt aggressively. There are two common approaches. Either pay off the highest interest rate debt first, mathematically optimal, or pay off the smallest balances first for psychological wins, the snowball method. Either works if you stick with it. Third, and this is controversial, I generally think people should prioritize eliminating consumer debt even over investing. Yes, mathematically you might earn more in the stock market than your debt interest rate, but the psychological weight of debt and the risk it adds to your life make eliminating it a priority. Once your consumer debt is gone, suddenly a huge chunk of your monthly income is freed up. That's when wealth building can actually begin. Quick question. What's one purchase you made on credit in the past that you regretted later? We all have them. The key is learning from those experiences. Mistake number 3, misunderstanding compound growth. The third big financial mistake is misunderstanding or ignoring compound growth, both the positive and negative varieties. Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, saying, those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it. Whether he actually said that is debated, but the principle is absolutely true. Most humans are terrible at intuiting exponential growth. Our brains evolved to think linearly. That's why so many people underestimate what happens when money grows or shrinks at a percentage rate over long periods. Let me give you a personal example. When I invested in Tesla in the early funding rounds, I put in practically all the money I had made from PayPal, about $6.5 million in the Series A. Many people thought I was crazy. If I had just put that money in an index fund instead, I'd still be very wealthy today. But understanding compounding and business growth, I saw how Tesla could scale exponentially if we executed correctly. That initial investment eventually became worth billions, a return that dwarfs what any traditional investment could have provided. On the flip side, consumer debt compounds against you. A $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest costs you $1,000 in interest the first year. If you only make minimum payments, you'll end up paying more than double the original amount over time. The solution is to harness compound growth in your favor. Start investing as early as possible, even small amounts. The difference between starting at 25 versus 35 is enormous due to those extra years of compounding. Understand that a seemingly small difference in return rates, say 7% versus 9%, becomes massive over decades. This is why investment fees matter so much. A 1% annual fee might not sound like much, but it can reduce your final balance by 25% over 30 years. And perhaps most importantly, be patient. Compounding requires time. Most of the growth happens in the later years. That's why I've held on to Tesla stock through extreme volatility. I'm thinking decades ahead, not quarters. Here's a thought experiment for you. If you save just $500 a month from age 25 to 65 and earned an average 8% return, how much would you have? The answer is over $1.5 million. That's the power of compound growth. Now imagine starting earlier or saving more. Mistake number 4, career path complacency. The fourth financial mistake is career path complacency. This one's a bit different, but possibly the most impactful of all. For most people, their career is their primary financial engine. It's where the majority of your money will come from, especially in the early decades. Yet, I see many people putting more thought into planning a vacation than planning their career trajectory. I've always believed your work is a massive part of your life, so it should be something you find meaningful, but it also needs to be financially viable. When I came to North America, I intentionally looked at what industries and skills would be economically valuable in the future. That's partly why I got interested in software, internet businesses, and later sustainable energy and space. These weren't just passions, they were fields with enormous potential for growth. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is failing to invest in their own skills and knowledge. The return on investment for education and skill development, when targeted correctly, is astronomical. Early in my career, I taught myself programming because I saw where technology was headed. Later, when starting SpaceX, I literally studied rocket science by reading textbooks and talking to experts. Was it hard? Absolutely, but the payoff has been tremendous. The solution here has several parts. First, regularly audit your career path. Are you developing skills that will be valuable in 5 to 10 years? Industries change fast now. What's secure today might be automated tomorrow. Second, don't just climb the ladder, look for ladders in growing industries. A senior role in a shrinking industry often pays less than a mid-level position in a booming field. Third, consider entrepreneurship if it fits your personality. Not everyone should start a company, but if you have the drive and a good idea, the financial upside is potentially unlimited. Even a small business that generates $250,000 in annual profit is life-changing for most people. Fourth, negotiate your compensation aggressively. Most people leave enormous amounts of money on the table throughout their careers by failing to negotiate effectively. This compounds over time in lost earnings. I've had to negotiate hard at every company I've built, with Tesla's initial investors, with NASA contracts at SpaceX, with early employees when I couldn't offer much salary but could offer equity. Learning to advocate for yourself financially is an essential skill. Let me ask you this. If you were going to invest 6 months in learning a new skill to increase your earning potential, what would it be? What skill would most dramatically improve your value in the marketplace? Mistake number 5, lifestyle inflation and status games. The fifth major financial mistake is succumbing to lifestyle inflation and status games. This is something I feel strongly about. As your income increases, there's a natural tendency to increase your spending proportionally. Bigger house, luxury cars, expensive clothes, premium, everything. Before you know it, you're making multiples of what you once did, but still living paycheck to paycheck. I've tried to avoid this trap in my own life. For many years, even after becoming wealthy on paper from PayPal, I lived relatively modestly. When I was running Tesla and SpaceX during the difficult period around 2008, I actually had to borrow money for rent, despite having had a significant amount of money earlier. That experience reinforced something important. Material possessions often bring much less happiness than we expect, and they introduce significant financial stress and complexity to our lives. Look at Warren Buffett, still living in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500, despite being one of the richest people on the planet. That's extreme, but there's wisdom there. The solution isn't necessarily minimalism, though that works for some people. It's intentionality. Before upgrading your lifestyle with increased income, first increase your savings rate and investments. Make wealth building the default destination for additional income, not consumption. A practical approach I've recommended to people. When you get a raise, direct 50% of the increased income to investments automatically. You still get to improve your lifestyle with the other 50%, but you're building wealth simultaneously. Also, become aware of status games and opt out when possible. Ask yourself, am I buying this because it delivers real value to me, or because of how others will perceive it? You'd be surprised how often it's the latter. Here's a personal exercise worth trying. Make a list of your 5 most expensive purchases from the past year. For each one, rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how much sustained happiness or value it's brought you. This simple reflection can dramatically change your spending patterns. Mistake number 6, investment complexity and market timing. The 6th costly financial mistake is overcomplicating your investments and trying to time markets. I've seen highly intelligent engineers, programmers, and executives make this mistake repeatedly. They think their intelligence in their field will translate to outsmarting markets. It rarely does. In 2000, after PayPal, I had about $180 million. I invested almost all of it into SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City. That worked out extraordinarily well, but it was incredibly risky. Most people should not concentrate their investments to that degree. I was building companies I personally controlled, which is very different from picking stocks. For most people, complexity in investing is the enemy. Every complicated product, every attempt to time market movements, every exotic strategy increases both costs and opportunities for error, while rarely improving returns. Studies consistently show that even professional fund managers fail to beat simple index funds over the long term. The statistics are brutal. Something like 90% of active managers underperform their benchmarks over 15 plus years. The solution is radical simplicity. For most people, a portfolio of low-cost index funds, rebalanced occasionally, will outperform almost anything else they might do, while requiring minimal time and knowledge. Automate your investments with regular contributions regardless of market conditions. This naturally implements dollar-cost averaging, buying more shares when prices are low and fewer when they're high. And perhaps most importantly, ignore market predictions and financial news designed to trigger emotional responses. No one, not billionaires, not television pundits, not economic forecasters, consistently predicts market movements accurately. I've been wrongly predicted to go bankrupt so many times I've lost count. If I had listened to market sentiment during Tesla's difficult periods, I would have sold everything at the worst possible moments. Question for reflection: how many hours per week do you spend consuming financial news and market updates? And has that information actually improved your investment returns or just increased your stress level? Mistake number 7, ignoring tax strategy. The 7th and final major financial mistake is ignoring tax strategy in your financial planning. I know taxes are boring, complex, frustrating, but they're also likely one of your biggest lifetime expenses. The difference between smart and poor tax planning can literally be millions of dollars over a career. I've been outspoken about taxes at times, but regardless of your political views on tax policy, working within the existing rules to legally minimize your tax burden is just math. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about anything aggressive or questionable. I'm talking about simply using the tax-advantaged options explicitly created by the government. Here's a personal example. When Tesla was struggling in the early days, we structured things to maximize the capital gains potential down the road if we succeeded. Had we not done this tax planning, a huge amount of additional value would have been lost to avoidable taxes. For most people, the solution starts with fully utilizing tax-advantaged accounts: 401ks, IRAs, HSAs, 529 plans. These can save hundreds of thousands in taxes over your lifetime. Understand the tax implications of your investments. For example, holding investments for over a year for long-term capital gains rates, putting income-generating investments in tax-sheltered accounts, considering tax loss harvesting during market downturns. Even the timing of when you sell investments can make an enormous difference in your after-tax returns. This isn't about complex schemes or offshore accounts. It's about not leaving money on the table that the tax code explicitly allows you to keep. Question to consider: when was the last time you reviewed your tax strategy? Have you maximized your contributions to tax-advantaged accounts this year? Are you taking advantage of all the deductions and credits you're entitled to? We've covered the 7 costly financial mistakes that I see people making repeatedly. Let's quickly recap. 1. Living without financial runway. 2. Consumer debt addiction. 3. Misunderstanding compound growth. 4. Career path complacency. 5. Lifestyle inflation and status games. 6. Investment complexity and market timing. 7. Ignoring tax strategy. Addressing even one of these areas can dramatically change your financial trajectory. Addressing all 7 can be truly life-changing. I want to leave you with this thought. Financial freedom isn't about having a specific dollar amount. It's about having options. The option to take risks, to do meaningful work, to spend time on what matters to you, to weather unexpected storms. My entire career has been built on taking calculated risks, from dropping out of Stanford to start my first company, to putting my PayPal proceeds into Tesla and SpaceX, to doubling down during the 2008 financial crisis when both companies were nearly bankrupt. Without financial fundamentals in place, I couldn't have taken those risks. And without those risks, none of the subsequent impact would have been possible. So I challenge you, which of these 7 areas